Hi, this is Everett's Watercolors. Welcome to my classroom, simply drawing with Everett. And now I'm broadcasting live on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitch. And this is simply drawing with Everett. And I'm in the studio with my wife, Gloria.
Hello.
And she'll be checking the chat room and the broadcast tonight. I got the chat room live. And there you go. Restream. Welcome, everyone. Oh, is that okay? Someone typed that in there. Good. All right. Well, good evening. Good evening. Those that are reporting for the first time, I'd appreciate it if you sign in. Subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up during the broadcast. And if you have comments, give me a comment. And I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Well, tonight we're going to do another drawing exercise, and I thought it'd be interesting to do really learn how to construct buildings. We've been drawing other subject matters and so forth, but in a landscape, probably one of the favorite subjects is drawing a building. So, and it's got simple shapes to it, but then you also have to look at the perspective and sizes and so forth. So it's like drawing anything else. You have to have a couple beginning points and then go from there. So let's take me over to my drawing table and let me get started. Okay, well tonight you can see here I've got a couple buildings here. There's a large building, a middle size, and a small building down here. So I got three buildings here in a row. And what was interesting here when I saw this, they had this shadow pattern. Morning sun was coming up, and they had a shadow pattern here, and there was a shadow pattern on this building, and down here at the very end. So those three buildings, all different sizes, but had an interesting configuration. But one of the things we have to find out now is how we draw this and make some sense of it. Because there are some complicated shapes, and there's some shapes here that we don't really need. Well, a lot of these trees I'm not going to put in, and the vehicles they're not going to go in the drawing either. I'm just going to get the buildings and the street and maybe the shadow patterns. That's all I'm really going to do tonight. The first thing I want to do is I want to locate the horizon line. So I've got a straight edge here, and when I took this photograph, and I sized it down, well, I cropped it down to the area that I want to draw, so I got the sizes of it that I want. But I had to line up the horizon line. I picked a couple interesting things. The top of the vehicles, the one down here and the one here, that's when they line up on a line, and that pretty well shows where the horizon line is. So the horizon line is, and that's where my viewpoint was when I was standing up taking a camera shot. That was my eye level when I was looking at this position or this location. That's my eye level. So that's the horizon line right there. So from the horizon line, you can see that the perspective of the buildings start to get taller, and there's an angle. And as you come down, the bottom of there's an angle at the bottom of the buildings. So we've got to take that into account. So I'm going to start with the horizon line. So I've got. Let's go over some of the material I'm going to use tonight. I've got some pencils. I've got a HB pencil for drawing. I got my standard number 2 pencil for sizing. And I've got a 4B to do some shading. And I'm going to introduce also a sketch and wash tonight. I'm going to put a little bit of shadowing into the, you see the shadow patterns and so forth. I'm going to use the sketch and wash pencil, which I'll go into when I get into it. And I've got a little 8 by 10 piece of watercolor paper tonight to draw on, because I knew I was going to use sketch and wash with water, so I wanted to get a piece of watercolor paper. It's a little more friendly with watercolor. But you could use any kind. You could use sketch paper if you wanted to with the sketch and wash. It still works. Okay, so I'm going to locate the horizon line is a low horizon line because it's way down here. So I'm going to put the line right there. That's the horizon line. And I can start that. That's my reference point. Over to the right side. And then I look at the photograph and I can see the angle. I can look at the angles where the vehicles are lined up. You can look at the wheels, and that gives you a hint on a perspective of the shadow pattern there from the building. So I'm going to put that in, which will come down about right here. There's a shadow pattern that goes along there, so I'm going to draw a reference line in. I'm drawing in some tentative reference lines. And I'm estimating now that the bottom of the buildings will run along. They come down from the horizon line. It'll be just about right there. So that's where I'm going to put the building lines as they come down. Because they're all on the street there. Okay. All right. So let's get some locations. What I'm going to do, what I did is I said I cropped this photograph down to the size I want to draw it on. So I'm going to take some shots here right from the photograph. So I'm going to come down here with my pencil, and that's my first vertical. This front corner here of this building, I'm going to come down, and that's going to be my first line. My first vertical line will be the front of that building. Okay. My sketch and my photograph will be on Everetts Watercolors, my website, and it'll be on from the Watercolors. It's got no, I got I'm sorry, Drawing with Everett. I have a Drawing with Everett page on my website, which will take you right to the sketch and the drawing and the video. So I'm going to estimate that point right there at the very top is going to be, I'm going to make a point there, and it's going to come down to the area I put at the bottom, the base of the building. Okay. Now I'm going to take another line, this line here. There's three sections. There's a dark section, a light section, and then a dark section. That's all I'm going to talk about. I don't care about the details, just the dark and light sections. So that line there is going to come down, and I'm going to put that right there. I'm going to mark the vertical line first. That brings that line down there, down to the base. And now I'm going to get the angle. That angle is about like that. You can see the angle. I'm going to bring it down, and that's going to bring it right there. So I'm going to put that, and I'm going to draw that line in. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to draw that line in. Right there. Okay, now the second the next line I want to get is this line here. Now I'm not copying the photograph. I'm getting a perspective of what I see. I know this line, this area is a little bit lighter. I mean a little bit smaller. And the final one, I'm gonna expand this out a little bit more. I know it comes down here. I'm gonna make this. I'll explain to you in a minute here what I'm doing. Okay, so I got the vertical lines. I'm looking at the photograph. This section here is wider than this section, which is narrow, which is smaller. And this section here, even though it's the same, if I was looking straight at it, it'd be the same. But this looks smaller from the angle I'm looking at. This is smaller than over here. So I'm accounting for that. This is smaller than this section here. And I'm going to continue that now. This line is parallel. Now this line continues on. The top of this, so I'm just going to continue this on down. Let's see, I'm going to erase a little line here. I made a little line I want to take out just so I don't move. All right, so I got that section. Now this part, there's a little part here in the front that has a little angle to it. It comes out, and this will slope down because it's going back. And this angle up, this size up here will come down. This will start to come down a little bit like that. And then it has an angle out here. And the dimension of this side here, I'm going to bring it down, is right there. Okay. Now, this little section over here on the left, this little block which is in shadow, it overlaps a little bit at the corner, and it comes down to the. And what happens is this particular section here is behind this section here, so it has to have a little slope that goes back. And it has a little section here, a little white section, a light section that goes up. And it has an angle also. So I'm taking the angles off here, off the photograph, and I'm observing the angle by sizing it. I'm sighting it with the pencil. Okay, so I've basically got this corner here pretty well. Now I'm gonna take my straight edge. This part of the building here is going to be not parallel, but it's going to go back like that because it's behind. Okay, so this left a little bit. That's not that important right now. Okay, now this line here continues over this line here. Let's this corner over here goes out a little bit, and because it's in perspective, it's going to be smaller. So I've got to draw that in, and I think I'll use a straight edge. It's got to draw that in at an angle, but it's also in perspective. So this side here is longer than this side back down here. It's not that much, but just a little bit. So I've got this whole section here done, and I've got these three front sides done. I'll leave the tops alone leave the top up here alone for a minute. Let's go to this next building. Now, a key here is that the front of these buildings line up because they're the same height. So if I put the pencil across there, this here runs right the same angle and the same distance. So I come down here. Well, first of all, let's get the vertical. I'll come down. There's a vertical here. There's a small section in here. There's another just like this section here. There's another little section down here. This section and this section are the same. They go back a little bit. They're behind the main part of the building, the main building. Okay, and then this building here comes out in front. And you can see here that I'm going to draw this line in. This line here is below this corner. So I can draw that in. Get that dimension. And this line here is about halfway, not quite halfway, about a third of this the size up here. And it angles up also. And this has a corner on it like that. Okay. Now, as I mentioned before, this front side is has the same angle because they're the same height. So this one would come up here. This would be almost an extension of this building here. So it would connect distance-wise or shape-wise, and this would come over here the same way, and it has a corner. Now, the tree here covers this up quite a bit, but I know because I can see the corner of the building here. This corner here comes down, so I know that's the corner of that building. It's a corner where the street has a turn into the side there between two buildings. So there's a street down there at the end of the block. Okay, now this little section in here is also the same size as this. It has the same angle. If you look at this, the tops line up. They line up just like this. So that this continuation here, there's a little building here, or a little storefront here that's back. It's in the background a little bit behind this building over. This building is larger and taller. So there's a little. This goes back behind also, just a little bit. Not important, but just to give it the start. So I've got the front of this building. I've got the side and the front of this building. I've got the two little inserts. Now this third building down here, I'm going to estimate a couple things. Now this section right here, which is light, is about halfway down. A little, yeah, about half from the top here down. This is about halfway. So I'm going to I'm going to estimate that to be halfway. And you can see it has a corner on it. Just these buildings will have the same, almost the same sort of structure as far as the trim on the buildings. They're different sizes, but they have the same trim. And you can see the rooftop here slopes back. I'm just going to do an I'm just going to do a little bit of, or just look at that and do a little configuration. And that building, that top is flat. And then the front of that goes down. This is in shadow. And there's a section here in the front of this building. I'll put that in. And it slopes down because it's in perspective. And then it goes away. This is not, the most important thing is this corner right here. This corner. Because this doesn't have much of a definition at all. Okay, now last thing I want to do is get in. I got a couple shadow patterns and I want to get the top of these buildings. Okay, this building here, let's look at the top of this one. It's like a triangle peak. It starts here at the corner and the angle is about a 45. And the front goes about halfway between. It's about midway between this edge and this edge. So that puts it about right there. Because here's the edge here and there's the edge there. So about midway puts it about right there. And I'm checking the angle. It's about 45 degrees. Now that slope should be a little bit. It should be higher in the front, just a little bit. It's going back, and then you look at the right side over here. It comes about halfway between this side and this side, about halfway. So I can draw this down and check that slope. It's about like that. Okay, the angle looks good, and there's a little bit of shadow here on this side, this roof edge. I'll put that in just as a reference point. Okay, now this building over this top of this building here is very interesting. It's like a pyramid. It's got there's an angle out here. It starts at this point here and goes out to a point like that angle there, and then this, from the point of that, it comes down to this point here. So I got that point. Now from the top down to the other side or the corner is the other part of the top. So I can draw that in. And I better use a straight edge there, so I'll line that up. I got the point and the two corners, so I'll draw that in. Okay? And I've got the rooftop on this one down here already done, so let's leave that one alone. That's good enough. Just a reference point, okay? Okay, and I got the bottom of these buildings down here, and this building over here is at the horizon line. So there's a street out here. There's a street. And the only other thing that's maybe interesting, there's a little shadow pattern out here. That's the sun is hitting this side. Now let's look at the shadow. This is what's interesting. This shadow right here on the building. Cast shadow. It comes down. Has a little bump to it because that's the corner here. It's actually this corner over here. If you see this corner here, it's light. It's shadowing down here on here. So this corner is shadowed here. So it's going to have a little mark, and then it's going to come down. I'm really just eyeballing that in there, and then it comes down. All right, so that's the edge of that shadow. And the only other shadow I really want to look at is the shadow on this building. This building has a similar one. You can't see through the trees very well, but I see it. It comes down to this corner here. And it's going to do the same thing. It's going to come down from that corner and go straight down. That's the edge on there, and this chart over here is here. So I'm going to go ahead and put in some shadow patterns now. So let me take the charcoal, what I call sketch and wash. Now sketch and wash, it's on my website, everettswatercolors.com, and it's a sketch and wash pencil, and it comes in a set of 2. And I need a sketch and wash pencil, and I also have a water brush with water in it, and I can wet it down. And all right, So what I'm going to do is going to put some, now the front of these buildings I'm going to put a little bit in shadow. And I'm really interested in the shadow pattern. So I'm going to put this one, this will be the darker side. Yeah, the Sketch and Wash has a has a sharpener with it inside the package. It's a standard size pencil, so anything would work as far as sharpening. Okay, so I'm going to get that shadow started there. That's the darker shadow, and it's going to continue on. So I can put the little. I'm going to put the. So I'm really going to mark the shadows in. And we're not going to color this in tonight because it's that would be another exercise to color it in. I'm not going to do it. Just going to get the shadow pattern. There's a shadow pattern in the front of this building, and I get it. These are the darker shadows because these are darker bricks. So I'll make them a little bit darker. This is a darker shadow over here because it's a dark brick. So I'm also indicating the shadow and also indicating the color that's there. It's a darker color because it's in shadow. This part out here is in shadow. As we come down, this part here will be in shadow, along with the shadow from the... So what I want to do is try to show not only the shapes of the buildings and the shadow pattern, which will show the interest of this particular configuration, of this composition. So yeah, I like in landscapes, buildings are very popular, and it's something you need to practice. So you take pictures of houses and buildings and so forth, and practice the shape, and find a good shadow pattern. That makes it more interesting to draw, number one, and of course that makes it more interesting when you're finished. Oh, this rooftop is dark. I'll mark that darker too. Okay, now. So I'm just going to do maybe portions of this so you can get a little idea of the overall effect. So these are the darker values because of the dark brick and also the shadow. Okay. But then the other question now, what do you do with the rest of the colors? Well, I'm looking at the comment. I see the lightest color is right here, because the sun's on it, but it's even lighter than the sky. The sky is darker than that value. So that would be the lightest color. The next lightest is here in the rooftop. This one's kind of light. The rooftop's lighter than the sky, and then everything else is a little bit darker. So if I was going to color this in with values, the next value I would put in would be, let's say, the rooftop up here. I'll just a very light touch up here. I don't need much graphite. This is a water soluble graphite pencil, and I would put. And I'm going to show you something here about this. That one there is okay. This is okay. This is okay. This is going to be lighter down here also. This is also going to be light. All right. So let me get the water pencil and water pencil, water brush. And let's start shading this in. So this would be a dark value here, and then we'll talk about the light colors. That's another interesting problem. And now in art, we talked about this before in previous classes, but art is it really becomes a problem-solving situation in art. You're going to decide, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? What color am I going to use here? What value do I use? And those are all little problems that you solve as you go along. And that's why I find art so interesting, because it's a problem-solving exercise. So I'll color this down a little bit. This over here is dark over here. So I would continue to color these in. To showing. Now, let me give you a little sample here. This here, I don't want a lot of water in this, but this would be a little bit darker up here. It's darker than the front side. So you really have to judge the lights and the darks, especially when you have a different color. And then I take out a little bit of the water, and I even do this one. This one here can be even lighter. This side over here is red. It's in the sunlight though, so it'd be a lighter color, or lighter value. And if I was going to put the sky in, it would be in comparison with the front. The sky would be darker. It'd be a little bit darker than this value here. It would come around. Now the only thing that's missing is the value that you would put on the light values, and that is really a good question. And what I do, and what I'm going to show you or try to demonstrate here before I stop, is I would look at what values you have. This is the sky value, and you know, you have to play around with the color a little bit, and also the value a little bit to get the right value. You have to do some comparison. Now, this value here, it's in shadow, so, and it's not as dark as that, but it is darker than that. So it's going to be darker than the rooftop. So this side here has got to have a little more value. So it's not as dark. It's darker than the sky. So this is where you're going to have one of the biggest problems now, is getting the right value for this section here. So you start out with a value. Right now the sky may be a little too dark. So that's what we need to investigate. I'm going to leave this white now. So this area over here is going to be dull. Okay, and I would continue on putting in the dark sides, the shadow sides. I'll go in and get the major sections here. And I'm probably going to leave one thing left to do, but that's something we need to analyze down the road. But I wanted to show you tonight how to get started on drawing a building, a structure, by analyzing the sizes and the shapes and the angles. But I start out with some guidelines. I had to have a horizon line, and then I had to have verticals, proportions of verticals, heights, angles of the rooftops. This rooftop over here is light. It's a little bit lighter than the sky at that point. I think that blue is darker than this light gray. And one way of checking values is to squint your eyes. You squint your eyes till they're almost half closed, or almost fully closed, and then you'll see the value, which is light or dark. Because by squinting your eyes, it takes away the color. The only thing we have probably the sky here is a little bit dark. This would have to probably be lightened up a little bit. We can try one more time down here. Just get the sky. We'll try a little bit of sky around this rooftop here. Make it just a little bit darker. So do a little experimenting. We'll come down here and put that against that rooftop. This graphite is very very solvable. As soon as you add water to it, it starts to break down and dissolve. Okay. the best way to analyze the values is to build yourself a little value scale and then come down and decide how light or how dark you want to make it. And this, now one more thing, one more area. This section here is darker than the other side because this is in shadow. This rooftop over here, I can put that in. Okay, so that's in shadow, and that's darker. Now the value of this light area, it's going to be darker than the rooftop, and it's going to be lighter than this because this is dark. So I'm going to have to make a judgment here. So I come in and take a section, and I go in. I'm going to test this out. So that may be the value I can get away with right there. Maybe that value right there. It's lighter, but it's also in shadow. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. We're not going to finish. I did the drawing. I wanted to show the drawing of the buildings. I got the drawing of the buildings, and I started playing around with the shading. You can see the shading here, especially in the dark shade. This area up here, that's pretty easy to get, the dark against the light. And then the dark against the light here. The lightest section is okay. These sections are okay. Then you start playing with the rooftops up here. And then you start comparing the value. We got 4 or 5 values here to play with. The sky versus the rooftop versus this section here is light, which is a little lighter than this section. And you got this section in here, which is a little bit lighter than this side. So we have several values here to play with. And that becomes a nice problem-solving situation.
We have a comment. Brazen Spirituality is with us this evening.
Oh, okay.
And she says she's all about soaking up the art skills. She sets her alarm for both of your lives, the one at 2 and the one at 7:30. And she said, I appreciate all the effort you put into these lessons.
Very good. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Nice comment. Well, I did this. I want to show you one other thing here. Having a good photograph, scale it down to the size you want to draw. That's probably the way to go. You scale it down. If you got a Photoshop or whatever, you can get it down to a 5x7 or whatever size you want to put it in. Then use that as your scale, and then use that to start out your. Otherwise, if you have a large scale or a small or larger photograph, you're going to have to scale it down on the paper. So I scaled it down to the size I wanted to draw. That helped out a little bit on getting the sizing. The angles and so forth, I just went ahead and used my sighting here to get the angles of the slope of the rooftops and the slopes of the cross areas that go across. Now the shading is one thing that needs to be worked on and so forth, but you can see here the problem that you have of getting the dark against the light and the light against the medium or medium value against the lighter value. So these all have to be evaluated depending on, and then trial and error to get the right value mix. Okay, I did one on location, and I'll show that to you. This is the one I did on location. I did it in color, okay, just so you can see the main shapes here. So this was what I did was I used the sketch and wash. I sketched and washed the areas out with the sketch and wash pencil. Then after that dried, I went in and put in the color. Now this red now, this is pyro red, and when it goes over the dark black, it turns into a darker red. You can see that right there. So that's one good advantage of using the sketch and wash pencil. That this was white paper, and this was, I put in the sketch and wash pencil here. But when I put the red color over top of it, you can see that I get a light and a dark red, which is exactly what the building is. I get a dark and a red, a dark shadow red, and a light sunlit red. So that gave me that. And then here I played around with the light and the dark of the lighter side. Okay. All right. So Thank you all for checking in with me tonight. Let me go back to the main camera. Okay. We're going to do more drawing of buildings and other structures and so forth. But tonight I think was a starting point to get you interested in drawing buildings. And you might try one building at a time. I tried a couple here to give you some comparison between shapes and sizes and perspective of angles and so forth. Because that's what the landscape does. You got one building here, like say a barn, and you got a main house over here. Well, you got to get the perspective right depending on their location. So you're always going to have one or two buildings in a landscape to make it more interesting. So you got to get the right perspective down, the right sizes. So you can start out with some guidelines and then go from there. But it takes practice, and the more practice, the better you'll get, and we'll keep working at it. So tonight was just an introduction to drawing buildings, and I hope you liked that. And if you did, give me a like and give me a thumbs up. I appreciate that. And thank you for the comments. Okay, thank you for checking in, Raisin. Nice to see you again, and we'll see you next week. I'll be back on Thursday at 2 in the afternoon with my watercolor, and I'll be in at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with another drawing class. So you all be safe, take care, and it's going to be nice weather next week. So this weekend I'll be out painting again. Looking forward to it. I'm looking for a lot of color in the autumn scene when the leaves start turning. So that's what I'll be doing pretty soon. So you all take care, and I'll see you next week. So bye.